Learn how to add a stencil pattern on your cake. This is going to be slightly longer than my usual videos, but that's because there's a lot to explain. There are lots of different styles and sizes of stencils available. I have got a small selection, but I haven't got one that is taller than the cakes I make. It would be a lot easier to use a stencil that is the same size or a little bit taller than the cake you're making. So if you can find a large one, I would get that. So to use any stencil on a cake, the first thing you need to make sure is that your cake is really cold. There are a couple of different ways that you can stick the stencil to the cake. You could use some food safe pins or cocktail sticks. I don't actually like doing it that way because I don't like putting holes in the cake. Or you can do it this way by pinching the ends of the stencil and holding it round the back. That does leave you one-handed to add the buttercream to the stencil, so it's probably not the easiest way. If the stencil isn't long enough for you to hold with one hand, or if you want to be hands-free, you could always tie some ribbon or a little bit of string through the ends of the stencil and tie it around the back. Whichever way you do it, the stencil needs to be tightly wrapped around the cake with no loose bits. So once your stencil is in position, we're going to add the buttercream. If you're making a ganache cake, then it's going to work exactly the same. I like to start adding the buttercream in the middle of the stencil just to help it stick to the cake so I can grab it around the back. If you are going to do it this way, then just make sure you've got everything close by because, like I said, you only have one hand. Now you need to completely cover the stencil in buttercream, but you don't want a really thick layer because you do have to scrape it all off. Just be really careful when you're applying the buttercream around the edges of the stencil because if it spills over the sides, then it can leave a messy finish. So once you have the layer of buttercream all over your stencil, you then need to scrape it off. Cleaning your scraper in between is quite difficult with one hand, so make sure you've got a sturdy bowl next to you. That's a Borelli Bakes top tip. So once you've scraped it all off, you'll be probably desperate to see what it looks like, but if you want the stenciling to stand out a little bit more, then you could add some gold lustre dust. I just use a big fluffy brush, dab it in the powder and then dab that onto the stencil. You don't have to cover the whole pattern on the stencil. Sometimes it looks good with just little bits of gold. So once you're happy with that, you just gently pull off the stencil from one end and it should reveal a nice pattern. Now, if you want the cake completely covered, we are going to repeat that process and line up the stencil to join the pattern. So if you're going to do this, we don't want to smudge the pattern we've already done. So put the cake in the fridge and we need to clean the stencil. Give it a good wash before it touches the cake again, and then you just need to line it up the best you can. I feel like I could have got a little bit closer on this cake. I think it was in the right position, but I could have added it a little bit lower down. Also, some did smudge over the side, but I just used my scraper to try and get rid of it. So that's it. Just make sure the cake's really cold, apply the stencil nice and tight, and you should be okay. If you've watched this all the way to the end, let me know if this was useful or not. Thanks for watching.